Late at night, when the world is quiet, there are stories that creep into the shadows. Stories that refuse to be forgotten. This is one of them. Between 1968 and 1969, a nameless predator stalked the streets of Northern California, choosing his victims at random, leaving behind coded messages, threats, and unanswered questions. He taunted police, mocked the public, and then vanished. He called himself Zodiac. He wanted fame, power, and control. And despite a trail of terror, law enforcement never caught him. To this day, his true identity remains one of the greatest mysteries in crime history. What kind of mind enjoys playing a game where the prize is human life? What was his purpose? And, most haunting of all, could he have been closer than we ever imagined? July 4th, 1969. While most of America celebrated Independence Day with fireworks and laughter, two young people sat in a parked car at Blue Rock Springs, wrapped in the quiet of the night. Darlene Ferrin, 22 years old, and Mike Mageau, 19, had no idea they were being watched. No idea their evening was about to turn into a nightmare. At first, Mike thought it was a police officer. The beam of a flashlight blinded him as the figure drew closer. Then, without warning, gunfire shattered the silence. The attacker fired 5 times before walking away. But then, he did something chilling. He came back and fired again. Darlene Ferrin didn't survive. Mike Mageau, though critically wounded, did. He would later describe his attacker as a heavy-set man, possibly in his late 20s or early 30s, with short, light-colored hair, but no name, no identity. Just a faceless shadow who disappeared into the night. Less than a month later, on August 1st, 3 nearly identical letters arrived at the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. The writer took credit for 2 recent attacks, describing details only the killer could know. But it was what came next that sent chills through California. He claimed he had left a hidden message, a puzzle that, if solved, would reveal his identity. He demanded the newspapers print his ciphers on the front page, or he would kill again. This wasn't just about murder. This was about control. The Zodiac wanted attention. He wanted the world to know his name, even if no one knew who he really was. Law enforcement was faced with a chilling dilemma. The killer's letters contained classified crime scene details. This wasn't a hoax. He was real, he was watching, and he wasn't done. Paranoia spread like wildfire. People feared going out at night. Couples hesitated to park in secluded areas. The Zodiac had successfully planted terror in the hearts of an entire region without ever showing his face. And then, a breakthrough. A history teacher and his wife cracked the code. But what they found was far from a name or an address. Instead, it was something far more disturbing. The Zodiac didn't just want to be known. He wanted to be feared. On August 1, 1969, 3 nearly identical letters arrived at the offices of the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. The author, a nameless predator. The message, a chilling confession and a demand. Publish my words, or more will die. But the true horror lay beneath the words. Attached to each letter was a cryptogram, an encrypted message that, according to its sender, would reveal his identity. Zodiac claimed that if the public could solve it, they'd understand his thirst for blood. Cryptographers, amateur code breakers, and law enforcement raced to crack the cipher. Days turned into weeks, until finally, a school teacher and his wife from Salinas, California, uncovered its meaning. I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all. It wasn't a name, it wasn't a confession. It was a declaration, a game of power. The killer had no intention of revealing who he was, only that he would continue. And he did. The symbol became his calling card, a simple cross intersecting a circle, scrawled onto letters, clothing, and even carved into the side of a victim's car. But what did it mean? Some believed it was a reference to gun sights, a nod to his method of attack. Others speculated that it had occult significance or ties to the military. Theories ran wild, but no concrete answers ever surfaced. And then came another challenge, an even more complex cipher, one that would take over 50 years to crack. September 27, 1969. A warm afternoon at Lake Berryessa. Perfect for a quiet getaway. College students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard settled on a secluded patch of grass, unaware that someone had been watching them. Someone who had already decided their fate. He wasn't in a hurry. He wanted them to see him, to feel the fear build. His voice was calm, calculated. "I'm an escaped convict. I need your car, your money. Do as I say, and you won't get hurt." But it was a lie. The moment he had them under control, he pulled out a knife and started stabbing. Slow, deliberate, each strike meant to prolong the horror. Brian played dead. Cecilia wasn't as lucky. Then, as if none of it mattered, he strolled back to his car, drove off, and phoned the police to report his own crime. Brian survived. Cecilia died 2 days later. And just like that, Zodiac had changed the game. This was no longer just a killer hiding in the dark. He had stepped into the light. 2 weeks later, the Zodiac returned. This time, his target wasn't a couple in a secluded spot. It was a man just doing his job. He didn't run. He didn't panic. He simply walked away, past witnesses, past approaching police officers. A mistake in communication led them to believe they were looking for a black suspect. By the time they realized the truth, Zodiac was gone. This was his boldest move yet. Murder in the heart of the city, leaving behind a witness description. But once again, he stayed one step ahead. Days later, another letter arrived. Inside, a piece of Paul Stine's bloody shirt. Proof that he was taunting them once again. By now, the Zodiac wasn't just a killer. He was a legend. Parents kept their children inside. Couples avoided lonely roads. The fear wasn't just about his attacks. It was the way he played with the world, like a puppeteer pulling invisible strings. He had no pattern, no motive, no clear face, and worst of all, he wasn't finished. As the bodies piled up, so did the letters. The Zodiac wasn't content with just killing. He wanted an audience, he wanted fear, and he wanted control. So, he wrote. Letter after letter sent to newspapers, mocking the police, taunting the public, and threatening new victims. October 13, 1969, the San Francisco Chronicle received a letter unlike any before. Zodiac claimed responsibility for his latest murder, the execution-style shooting of cab driver Paul Stine. But this time, he wanted more than attention. He wanted panic. He threatened to attack a school bus, to pick off children one by one. Parents were terrified. Schools went on high alert. Police escorted buses. Officers scanning every intersection, waiting for a killer who thrived on their fear. But Zodiac wasn't finished. He wanted to prove he was smarter than everyone hunting him. And so he left riddles, ciphers filled with symbols, numbers, and cryptic messages, daring the world to figure him out. Some were cracked. Most were not. In one message, he claimed his name was hidden in the puzzle. But decades passed, and that secret remains locked away. Was it all a game? A distraction? Or did the truth really hide between the symbols? He watched as the world tried to unmask him, laughing from the shadows, knowing that every time someone said his name, every time someone studied his ciphers, he was winning. Over the years, many names have been whispered in connection to the Zodiac Killer. Some were more convincing than others, but despite countless theories, the truth remained elusive. Was the man behind the cryptic letters and brutal murders hiding in plain sight? Let's examine the suspects. Arthur Lee Allen, the man who for decades stood at the center of speculation. Investigators found him strange, unsettling, and far too close to the case for comfort. Allen had a history of troubling behavior. He once told a friend that he fantasized about hunting people. His favorite book, The Most Dangerous Game, a story about a man who kills for sport. And then there was the evidence, or rather, the unsettling coincidences. Alan wore a Zodiac brag wristwatch. He misspelled words the same way the killer did. His former friend even claimed he openly admitted, "I'm the Zodiac." But here's the problem. His fingerprints didn't match. His handwriting was tested and ruled out. Despite overwhelming suspicion, there was nothing concrete tying him to the crimes. He died in 1992, taking his secrets with him. Was he the Zodiac, or just another shadow in the dark? Arthur Leigh Allen wasn't the only name investigators considered. Over the years, other suspects emerged, each with their own dark past. Gary Francis Post, a former Air Force veteran. In 2021, a team of private investigators claimed they had cracked the case. Post had scars on his forehead that resembled the Zodiac's infamous police sketch. His old acquaintances described him as violent, controlling, but law enforcement dismissed the findings. Without DNA, it was all speculation. Then there was Lawrence Kane, a man who eerily fit the psychological profile. He had a history of brain injuries that altered his behavior. A woman who survived the Zodiac's stalking later picked him out of a lineup, convinced he was the one. But once again, no solid evidence. And there were more. Rick Marshall, a projectionist obsessed with cryptic codes. Earl Van Best Jr., whose mugshot bore a striking resemblance to the Zodiac sketch. Each suspect had pieces of the puzzle, but none could complete it. With so many suspects, why didn't law enforcement make an arrest? The answer is frustratingly simple: lack of definitive proof. Forensic science in the late 60s wasn't what it is today. DNA profiling didn't exist. Investigators had to rely on witness accounts, handwriting analysis, and gut instinct. And the Zodiac? He was careful. No fingerprints, no direct connections, just riddles and bodies left behind. Each suspect brought more questions than answers. Some might have been involved, others were likely innocent, and the real Zodiac? He could have been someone no one ever suspected, a man who walked the streets unnoticed, reading the headlines, knowing he had gotten away with it all. Or maybe he was never caught because he never stopped watching. With every taunting letter, every chilling cipher, and every body left behind, the Zodiac dared the world to stop him, but no one ever did. Decades later, the question still lingers. Why? In the late 1960s, forensic science was far from what it is today. DNA profiling didn't exist. Security cameras were rare, and fingerprints? They had to be compared manually, a slow, painstaking process that left room for error. Investigators had pieces of the puzzle, but no way to connect them. The Zodiac knew this. He was careful, methodical. He mailed his letters but used gloves. He committed murders in open spaces where no one could witness his escape. He left only enough behind to mock authorities, never enough to get caught. Then there were the mistakes, missteps that may have cost investigators their best chances of catching him. A critical error. Witnesses saw a white male leaving the crime scene, but officers were told to look for a black suspect. The real Zodiac walked right past them, undetected. Other failures followed. Reports were misplaced, evidence wasn't properly preserved, agencies weren't communicating. The Zodiac wasn't just ahead of the police, he was laughing at them. And then he was gone. No more ciphers, no more bodies, no more letters. Did the Zodiac simply vanish? Some believe he died. Others think he was arrested for an unrelated crime. But there's another chilling possibility. What if he just changed? What if the Zodiac never stopped killing? What if he simply adapted, found a new way to hunt, a new place to hide? What if even now he's still out there watching, waiting? Decades have passed, but the ghost of the Zodiac still lingers. His letters, his ciphers, his taunts, echoes of a game played in the shadows, a game without a winner. Though his killing spree may have ended, the mystery he left behind continues to haunt investigators, both professional and amateur. The Zodiac wasn't just a murderer, he became a legend. His cryptic messages inspired countless theories, and his ability to outmaneuver law enforcement reshaped the way serial crimes were investigated. The case changed everything, forcing police departments to rethink profiling, forensic analysis, and how they handled communication with killers seeking the spotlight. But even with advancements in investigative techniques, even with DNA forensics more powerful than ever, his name remains unknown. Many believe it's only a matter of time before technology reveals what decades of detective work could not. In recent years, breakthroughs in genetic genealogy have solved cold cases once thought impossible to crack. Killers who remained hidden for generations, unmasked with a single strand of DNA. Could the Zodiac be next? The truth might be closer than we think. Or maybe he's watching from somewhere, knowing his secret has survived time itself. Decades have passed, yet the shadow of the Zodiac still looms over California. A faceless figure who toyed with the law, slipping through their grasp time and time again. His letters stopped, the killings ceased, at least the ones we know of. But did he disappear, or did he simply learn to hide better? The unsettling truth, he could have blended in, a quiet neighbor, a friendly face at the grocery store, maybe even someone who sat next to you on the bus. Was he ever caught for another crime under a different name, or did he take his secrets to the grave? Even with modern technology, forensic breakthroughs, and tireless investigations, the name behind the mask remains unknown. The Zodiac dared the world to uncover him, and so far, he's still winning. Or is he still out there, watching? And if you enjoy true crime stories that uncover the dark truths behind history's most mysterious cases, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.